Welcome to the Nazareth History Podcast. I'm your host, Timothy Nealand, and in each episode I'll be guiding you through stories of amazing alumni, fascinating faculty, or the hidden history of the university. In this special edition of the Nazareth History Podcast, we talk about how Nazareth began participating in the Rochester Pride Parade and how this participation has expanded every year since. Our guests are Kim Winden, Director in the Office of Diversity and Inclusive Excellence Education, and Tara Winner-Swete, Head of Cataloging and Metadata in the library. Tara and Kim, thanks so much for joining us on the History Podcast. To begin, could each of you tell our listeners a little bit about yourselves? Are you Nazareth alumni? When did you arrive at Nazareth, and what do you do in your current roles?
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having us on here today. I'm Tara Winner-Swete. I'm in the head of cataloging and metadata in the library. Been at Nazareth for in October to be 7 years now. And I've spent much of my professional life in librarianship, working with collections, cataloging, metadata, and helping to make information more discoverable. I'm not a Nazareth alum, but Nazareth has been a very important part of my professional life. And my daughter is an alum. And now in graduate school here. So I'm very invested in Nazareth. Over the years, I've become involved in a number of cross-campus efforts centered on community and connections. So the Pride Committee is one of those. And it's been especially meaningful because it brings together people from so many different parts of Nazareth.
Hi, my name is Kim Winden, and I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you for having us. I am a double alum from Nazareth, did my undergrad graduating in 2006, and then my graduate graduating in 2012. I'm now honored to be spending my career back at my Naz home. In this role, I have been here for 3 years this September. I spend half of my time on student support through Diversity Resource Center, the Atlas LGBTQAI+ Resource Center, affinity support, diversity, council advising, student leadership trainings and support, and NBRET. NBRET is our bias prevention, response, and repair program, and that involves preventative training and response and restoration when harm is done. Through restorative practices, we work not only to educate, but also to acknowledge harm and move forward with common ground. The other half of my job is professional learning for many ways that we as a community can do better. So this involves safe zone training, intergroup dialogue, bias training, workshops unpacking narrow inclusion, accessible programming, cultural humility, and navigating hard conversations. These are done through open workshops, push-in work with different areas and departments, and also consultation for staff, faculty, and student leaders on their very specific needs.
How did each of you become involved with Nazareth's participation in the Rochester Pride Parade?
So I actually love this story. It went back to 2022 when my wife and I were attending the Pride Parade, Rochester Pride Parade, and we were watching a bunch of, the participants march by, and we noticed a couple different universities and colleges locally. And there my wife turned around at me and said, "I didn't see Naz." And I said, "I didn't either." And I said, that's interesting. Let's let me double check like the roster of who was on there. And then again, I didn't see Naz. It kind of sat with me for a while that we weren't there. And so in August, about a couple weeks after the Pride Parade had ended, I sent a 15-paragraph email to, at the time, Dr. Beth Paul, who was the university president at the time. I sent her an email outlining why we should be in the Pride Parade, my reasoning for being in there. And it took about 3 weeks to get a response. And I thought, oh no, did I tick off the university president? They're very, very busy. So, I'm like, oh no, kind of twiddling my thumbs waiting. And then I got this lovely, 2 quick paragraph response from Dr. Paul 3 weeks later that said, "You're right. Why aren't we there?" And I've participated in Pride events at previous institutions that I worked at. Make it happen. And that's essentially what had happened at the time. So that was in August of 2022. And I would say by the spring of 2023, we had started to assemble and when I say assemble, there was like 2 of us involved who started getting Pride going here. That's how I actually started to participate. Yeah, so at the time it was myself and a former colleague named Eleanor, and we were kind of partners in this, and we led the efforts to, we're trying to figure this out from scratch, really. What are we doing? who who is invited to this? And of course it was everyone. We wanted to have alums, we wanted to have current students, we wanted to have faculty, staff. We just started thinking, how do we market this? How do we get people on board? Or do we get T-shirts? Do we need signs? We need a banner. People need to know who we are. And so they really just started out basic logistics the first go around. And we didn't know what kind of feedback, how many people were going to end up showing up. And we ended up having 60 people register that year and show up, and we were absolutely floored. It was astounding, the response that we had. And I also want to add that when something I was very passionate about with this was thinking about the current students at Nazareth and the alum who came before them and their representation on campus. So when everything that I put into this parade, I led with that notion of, we're doing this for them. We are doing this for the current students who are here to show them that they're valued and respected, that they belong. We're doing this for the alum because we want them to know that they didn't have this before, but we're going to have it now. And that's really what I led with originally. And then my second was level of thought was, I want this for the students, prospective students who are on the sidelines watching the Pride Parade. I wanted to see, 12, 13, 14-year-olds who were looking and just seeing what was walking down the street and the happiness and the joy. I wanted them to see that Nazareth could potentially be a place for them as well someday. So that's really what we led with in this entire process. It was the heart of the project, I could say.
And then fast forward a couple months, I started in 2023, September. And one of my first meetings was with Tara. She was like, I just want to introduce myself and talk about some of the initiatives that I'm a part of that would overlap with your office. And one of the big ones was Pride. And immediately we built a rapport, a friendship, and just hit the ground running. We didn't look back. We were like, all right, we can do this. We can do this. And I think that was a game changer for me, is like, okay, I'm new. I have the budget, but I don't know what we're doing yet because I'm learning my job day by day, week by week. And one of those big first things was like, all right, we need to go after this. Like, you all did it in that inaugural year. And one thing we did do was, in speaking to staff, faculty, students, and alum, we also learned that while that was the inaugural year of the institution being in the parade, there were many years that Naz was there. They just weren't there as Naz. They were there as individuals. They were there as maybe Lambda, but not supported by the institution, not there with a Naz banner, loud and proud. So this brought just a different level when they started it in 2022 of, we're just going to go all out there. We are allies. This is what we are founded on, is this inclusion, this belonging, and that's what we're here for. So being able to honor the people that came before in March without the institutional support also amplified it. We had alums in tears saying, we never thought we'd see this day, that like there's a banner, there's representation. It meant a lot.
I'd just like to add to that with follow up with Kim just said, is that going back to the alums who were marching, I'm going to use quotes, unofficially. When we refer to our participation currently at Pride, we always use the word officially participating because we want to pay homage to those who came before us and recognize they were there. They just didn't have the institutional support at the time. And so we are respectful in that, saying that we are officially participating and want to acknowledge that there has been participation in the past.
Let's fast forward to 2026. How many participants joined the Nazareth contingent this year?
So this year we had over 100 people marching, and we don't even know the official count because some people just showed up the day of being like, hey, can I march? And yes, it's always a yes. Even if we don't have any leftover swag, but we always do. We always have room for people. So over 100 marchers, and that doesn't even count the several people who were involved in other initiatives all week, such as like the mixer the night before, the tie-dye, the flower crown making, all of those things that some of our folks who aren't into the loud hustle and bustle of Pride, but want that neuro-inclusive space. And I will probably get to that in a little bit, but just that they have that space to participate. So I would say total participants around maybe 125, if 140, if we include everybody for
Oh, yeah,
that week.
definitely. It's at least that. Yeah.
Yes. So we have we call it the core committee, and then we have several subcommittees. And on the core committee, we have all the areas represented that would be doing these types of programming. So student engagement and leadership, alumni engagement, the library, ODIEE, and more. I know there's some I'm not naming at the moment. But so everybody takes on something. One person handles all of the housing because we do offer housing on campus for anybody. One person takes on all of the student engagement takes on the week of events and promoting them and funding them. And then the mixer was kind of like an ad hoc committee of Tara and two of our advancement folks. And they knocked it out of the park. It was our first mixer and it was phenomenal.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. So I have a list here who's involved. We had student engagement, we have housing, we have communication and sciences department, but Nicole's on that, and she is more or less an expert in sensory-friendly activities. Admissions, alumni, human resources, advancement, Center for Life's Work, which is a great perspective to have from the current students. And then myself in the library. I'm kind of the odd duck in the group, but the representation comes from all across campus. And then we do have on our core committee one of the Sisters of St. Joseph's, which we can get into as well.
When you think about those two experiences, what changes stand out to you most?
I think one of the things is that this has grown, I want to say, both strategically and organically. What we really looked at was, what do people need? What do people want? We led with that notion of not what do we as the Pride Committee want? What is best for our community? And I think once we started asking ourselves those questions and asking around, we recognized what we could constantly do to improve. Where can we grow this and make it more meaningful, and how can more people participate? You know, one of the things about Rochester Pride being in July is that it's a busy time of year for, people who want to be on vacation, faculty, staff, students. Not every student who attends Nazareth lives in the Rochester area. So, who's to say that, we have students living in Minnesota or Nebraska who want to attend and they can't, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to make the housing a more affordable option. So people who at least, we'll have anyone come here who wants to participate with us, but to make it more of a reasonable access for those who, let's say they live like 4 hours away and they want to drive. And, and finding a place to stay can be expensive. So why not stay on campus where it's affordable? Your family could join you, your friends, whomever. And so we wanted to make that easier for people to participate. That was one of the main reasons why we did that. Also, for those who have who need sensory-friendly engagement, one of the first years I ran into a former student and I said, "Oh, did you participate with us?" Because I knew they were part of the community, and they said, "No, it's just too much." And I said to myself, "Oh my goodness, you're not thinking about all those things when you start something like this, because you're thinking about, how do we get this off the ground?" Once we had it off the ground, we thought, how can we make this better for everyone? So by 2025 was the first year that we said, how are we gonna do this? The parade is a little too much. But the Rochester Picnic, which has its roots in the Rochester Pride story, that was a great opportunity for us to be able to have representation and have a tent there. And, with kind of signage saying this is sensory friendly, having sensory friendly, like fidget toys or just a quiet space for people. The picnic is great because it's at Genesee Valley Park and it's spread out. And we contacted the Rock Rainbow Seniors who organizes it ahead of time and said, this is what we're thinking about doing. We want to ensure that we kind of have a place to ourselves. Can you work with us? And they're like, yeah, this is great. And they're like, hey, maybe this is something we can work into the picnic, and you could have everyone stop by who needs it. And we were like, wow, like we weren't prepared to do that at the time, because we just kind of were thinking of protecting our own students and their allies. But then we were like, let's do this. Let's make this bigger and better for everyone. So in 2026, we participated in the picnic again. And we were able to open it up to the wider community, which is something we were absolutely happy to have. We actually had people come and just laying down on mats or just chilling out or just talking to us. It was a great way to connect and to have people participate with us who wouldn't necessarily find the parade as enjoyable. Pride, isn't just one day. Pride is about belonging, and we want people to belong every day. So how can we, share our resources, what we're capable of doing here? How can we share that with not only our students, but the Rochester community for them to know what we are at Naz and that belonging is every day. It's not just we're not showboating here. This is who we really are.
I echo all of that. And also each year when we think about, okay, what are we doing different this year? What are we minimizing? What are we maximizing? We're thinking about spreading the impact wider and digging deeper into equity and inclusion. So when we strategize, we're not really thinking, how do we get our numbers up? But that just organically and authentically happens. But we're really just choosing intentional ways to reach more people. So like Tara said, our neurodivergent folks, thinking about ways that we can heal harm done with our students of color, with our alumni of color, with those intersectionalities, thinking about how to spread that to on campus all year. So this year, for the first time ever, we'll have a specific Zen Den but specifically created for our LGBTQAI plus identifying folks and allies. So now a fourth, I think, sensory-friendly location on campus, but one that can really, truly feel a safe space for our students. So, for example, 2 years ago, we wanted to invite the Sisters of St. Joseph. So the thought wasn't like, oh, great, that'll be more people, but rather, let's get back to basics of the founding of Nazareth. It was the SSJs who founded Naz. And how do we really lean into our founding values, serving neighbor to neighbor without distinction and responding to the needs of the day? And the sisters eagerly joined the mission. There was no question. They were like, yes, we'll march with you. We want to be on the committee. What else can we do? And after that first year, it just took off. So that also gave us the opportunity to think about like, okay, so if we have some of our sisters marching and it's 98 degrees out, we need a van. This year, we needed to go bigger. We needed a party bus to put more people. So every year, it's like, okay, what more can we do? Because we need this to be accessible to everyone that wants to be there.
They support us. We want to support them back. So what's the best way we can do this? I think one of my favorite stories about the SSJs is the first year they marched. And, I think anyone who marches with us for the first time feels that energy, that joy, just that genuine love and compassion that we all have for one another and, our allies, and everyone is just so happy to be a part of that. And I'll never forget that one of the SSJs came up to me right after we finished marching and said, hey, Tara, do you think we can have a float next year? And I think that is going to be forever ingrained in my memory that, that's that they enjoyed it so much. They not only want to come back to be with us, so that was the unspoken thing they had just said, but not only that, they want to be on a float. So that told me right then and there that they felt a sense of belonging with us, which was incredibly important. And I absolutely love that story.
What kinds of feedback do you get from students, staff, alumni, or faculty related to Pride?
I think that we get, a lot of positive feedback from people. One of the things that I love to think about is, when we start planning for Pride in March of the year that we're going to be participating in. And I'll have people, I'll run into them, come May, and they'll say, are we going to be in Pride again? And I think it's just an expectation now that, it's become a tradition here. It started as an idea, and now it's become a tradition, and people are expecting it to be a part of our Naz story. And so when I have people come up to me and ask me, and, then the first thing I usually say to them, what, are you going to be on one of our committees? Because we always could use help, because as Kim mentioned, we have our core committee, which is kind of, different people in different departments on campus. But then we have subcommittees. We have our festival committee. We have our parade committee. We have our sensory friendly committee and the housing committee. And so, we need not just the core folks on that. We need more help from people, and it gets them excited and engaged, and, enhances their sense of belonging. And we would love to have every single person on the core committee. We want to make clear that it's not an exclusive group, but there could be too many cooks in the kitchen, and we want to make sure that this is a manageable thing. And we have found that this is the best way to kind of divvy up the responsibilities. And what we like to do is have the people who are part of the subcommittees feel, and take agency with it. And they're just as important to this overall process of, we need them. Like this year we added a safety team. So, we need people to take on the responsibility of making sure that there's cold water, making sure that we have people with safety vests on, if anyone is feeling faint or hot or exhausted. We have people with accessibility issues that are marching with us. So we need to make sure that people are taken care of. And without the people who are on these subcommittees, we could not do all that. We could not be what we are right now and what we have grown to for our representation in the parade without all of these people who help us out. And I just want to acknowledge them as well, because our representation is there's a lot of faculty and there's a lot of staff who don't get named in this, and I want to acknowledge that they are just as important to what the work that we're doing, and we rely on them to pull off what we're able to pull off. So
yes, and even leading up to before gathering what I think of as data feedback, the first feeling of feedback is just looking around at the parade, looking at a student where I know their story, I know the struggle, I know what it has taken for them to find themselves at Naz and to really find a place of belonging through the ups and the downs. But to see them and witness them looking around and seeing, the chair of the theater and dance department, the dean of the School of Music, the provost, the chief people officer, the president, like seeing them, it's almost like you see this enlightening. And I take that as feedback. Like being a data nerd, like that doesn't count as like actual feedback if I had to put this into a report. But in my heart, I'm like, this is why we do this. This is the feedback that I need to keep going, is just witnessing that enlightenment that I see in our students, that I see in our alumni, that you could see healing happening firsthand. And it's amazing. But as far as actual feedback that I get from the words from people, I think it comes in the comments, the smiles, the tears, the follow-up of like, we're doing this again, right? Like Tara said, and staff and faculty who participate, deans and cabinet who say, okay, what else can I do? I don't want to wait a year for another parade. What can I do? And the fact that nobody is holding back. They just want to keep being a part of this mission of creating a sense of belonging.
What has been the most meaningful moment you've experienced during the Pride Parade?
Well, I told you the one about the SSJ and the float, which I love that. But another one was from last year in Pride 2025. When Kim and I are usually kind of kicking off announcements at the beginning of the march, usually about a half hour before we're supposed to step off to march. And So we kind of go through some housekeeping about safety, about, not engaging with protesters, things of that nature. And we do some thank yous at that time. And then we usually ask another person to come up and speak. And last year we had asked an alum, Patty Hayes, and she did give me permission to use her name. We invited Patty to come and speak. And Patty was living, I think, in Toronto at the time and actually came back for this and had the opportunity to stand on the back of a pickup truck with a microphone in her hand and address 100 and something people who were there to march for Pride. Patty was one of those people who unofficially did not have the institutional support, and in the 90s represented Nazareth. She's one of those people that when we thought about this, we didn't have the name Patty at the time, but we knew there were people. Patty was one of those people. And for Patty to come back and to be able to address all of the supporters there were definitely tears, but there was excitement. There was healing. You could see the healing taking place right in front of you. We've been able to continue to build relationships with Patty and other alums, and this is just it was amazing to see. I think to me, I actually got the chills from that, because they were able to finally show Nazareth who they were, and to see all those cheers. I don't even know if anyone recorded it, but it was amazing, and I'll never forget that, watching Patty up there speaking and taking ownership of it and loving it and feeling the love back.
For me, the parade is exciting and amazing, but I'm also marching with my kids, so I'm also momming, but it's the festival where I feel those deep connections. Tabling all day at the festival at the Naz booth has been life-changing. To be able to dig deep with current parents, with parents of prospective students, with alums and friends, former and current faculty and staff, the stories just bring me to tears. Every year, it's just amazing. It does re-energize me. It just shows me the impact that's always been made at Naz, but now more so than ever. Now that it's visible, it is representation, it is institutionally supported. I believe that Naz really puts its money where its mouth is. We don't just talk about inclusion, but offering opportunities. And it just makes me reflect on all of these intercollegiate things that I sit on with other DEI employees and hearing that how much they have to scale back and they can't do this and they can't do that and their office name can't be that. In the 3 years being here, it has been a political roller coaster, as you know. And not once have I been asked to scale back or call something differently. I have not been asked to put money in different areas. If anything, I'm pushing the envelope more. And I keep being ready to fight. I'm like, all right, I'm ready to fight. I'm ready to tell Naz where they need to change. And I haven't had to fight. So I'm like, come on, I was ready. I was so pumped. But no, Naz has not asked me to scale back anything when it comes to creating inclusive and accessible spaces.
Why do you think it's important for Nazareth to be represented at Pride? And what message do you hope students, prospective students, alumni, and the wider Rochester community take away when they see Nazareth participating?
To take that a little further is I think Naz has responded to these initiatives really well and understanding. It's been an eye-opening, I think, for the institution to look and say, these are our students, these are our faculty, these are our staff, these are our alums, and they are a part of our overall community. And knowing that, our presence is important. I always cite this statistic there was a 2023 youth risk survey done by the CDC, and it was for high school students, grades 9 to 12. And they were asked how, they identified. It was a risk behavior survey. So they asked how they identified. And in this particular, it's this data that you can actually access through the CDC. 1 in 4 of those students surveyed did not identify as straight. So that can put them in the spectrum of whatever. 1 in 4. It's 25% of high school age students that are currently out there who identify as not straight. Whatever umbrella they fall under, they don't fall under the straight umbrella. That means 25% of our population here our student population, perhaps our faculty and staff, 25% of us all fall under that umbrella. We need to make sure that this 25% knows that they belong on campus, has the support that they need. We need to acknowledge that, recognize it and acknowledge it. And I feel that through the work we're doing, we're not throwing statistics out there to everyone, but I feel like through all these initiatives that we have on campus, the programs, we are saying Nazareth is understanding this is what we need to support. Not because we're providing special treatment, not because, anything of that nature. It's more like this is where our community is. And if we want them to be a part of our Nazareth history, we need to make sure that their needs are being met. And I feel like we're doing that. It started off a grassroots kind of effort in some respects, but it has fully engaged to an institutional level support, which is needed, because if we want to tell our story beyond the figurative four walls of Nazareth, if we want to share that story with the world, we need to make sure that we are doing what we're saying we're doing, what we say we believe in. And we have documentation. We can show people what we do here. We can just say, hey, look at this. Hey, look at that. We're not just, it's not lip service. This is actual work we're doing on campus. And if you want to belong here, you want to come to Nazareth, you're going to be supported.
I think that it means representation, support, healing, inclusion, and just fostering spaces for that belonging. Naz was founded on values that drive DEI work, and Nazareth, like I said, has never asked me to shy away from that deep work that we do. If anything, we've pushed harder. We lean into, okay, now we've talked about allyship, now we've talked about this and that, but how do we dig deeper through intergroup dialogue, through workshops? Every time we put out a safe zone sign up, we have a wait list. So that shows that the community is just craving education and how to deepen their allyship, how to deepen their inclusive practices. And always just thinking outside of the box of how to meet people where they are, because Safe Zone is an all-day training. It's a tough one. So being able to push in, I would go into the OT department and do specific for what does this look like in OT practice? What does this look like in medical practices when it comes to cultural humility, but also intersectionality, and really digging deep. And it has just been amazing to see that work grow and to see other departments saying, how do we sign up for this? How do we get a workshop about this or that? So it's about all identities. It's about all spaces that foster belonging. And I think that's what it's all about, is coming to Pride is like, I see it as like the icing on the cake. That's the celebration. And for some of our folks, they do this work, all of our folks do this work all year, and then they get to celebrate and experience the joy. For other folks, that's where they get their feet wet, and then they're like, okay, I want more. What do I do? How do I learn how to do better? One little story is when I was working at the Naz booth, one of the Sisters of St. Joseph was sitting with me. And, like when you're like hustle and bustle, there's like 40 people lining up because they all want Naz sunglasses and whatever cool swag we have. And there's like a whole line. And I'm talking to people and she's like, I have a question. And I'm like, oh, goodness. Yes. What is your question? And it's deep. She was like, I want to do better. What if someone were to come out to me? What do I say? And I'm like, oh, wow, we're having this conversation right now. Okay. So I got a couple staff members to work the table and we just sat and like chatted about what if this, what if that? How do I heal the fact that maybe my church harmed them? Like these deep questions. And to be able to just intentionally sit there together and unpack it, it did a lot of healing even for me. And just coming from the outside, growing up Catholic and seeing the things that I struggled with, that felt healing. So I cannot imagine the healing that would do for someone who was harmed in the community by the church. So I see people doing the hard work, and witnessing it just makes me want to learn more and do more.
Well, I think just kind of getting back to your last question about why is it important for Nazareth to be represented at Pride is, for me, it's all about visibility. It's always been about visibility. I think about, I've been a member of the LGBTQ plus community for as long as I can remember, out since my early 20s. And, there were people who came before us. There were people who led the way. There were people who paved the path. And those times were always, weren't always the easiest. They were very, very difficult times. I can still think of, when I think back to, I was talking to a friend like 15, 20 years ago who was talking about participating in the Buffalo Pride Parade. And they mentioned that there was talk about that they should wear paper bags over their heads with little eyes cut out because they wanted to march, but they were afraid that people would see them. So, I mean, do you want to talk about harm? There's, people who were afraid to show their faces. They wanted to be there to support, but they were afraid that they could lose their jobs. They were afraid that they would lose family. They could be afraid of losing so much. I think about the historic sense of pride and our community, and I'm always thinking about who came before us, because we would not be where we are without them. And I always lead with that when I think about it. And I want our students, our current students, our prospective students, or not even just our students, just young LGBTQ folks in general. I want them to think about, I want them to feel the love, that it's just there, it just exists, that they don't have to fight through it. I know they're probably going to have to. The state of the world has not caught up to what most of us know, that this is just about love and community. There is no hidden agenda, but we still have to continue to educate. So for me, it's all about visibility. It's about not just pride. It's about when I walk into a room or I'm meeting people the first time, I, use my pronouns and I say who I am. I talk about my wife. I want other people to know who are around me that I'm a safe person, and lead with that, because you just don't ever know sometimes. And I've had some people come to me and, just say, I felt so much relief when you told me that. I felt like I was, you immediately feel comfortable around someone when they open up to you about that. So to me, it's all about visibility. Nazareth being at the Pride Parade is about visibility. It's about what we lacked in visibility previously, where we are with visibility now, and just communicating to everyone, we're here and we're not going away. This is who we are. We're going to stay, strong and dedicated. And it's a part of my life. I mean, I can't just deny this part of my life exists. And it's for so many people, it's a part of their life. So to try to push it back in a corner and say it doesn't exist is ridiculous. So I want to live proudly. I want to live without fear. I want to live, knowing that I can lead the best life possible, and be not only that, but be a role model for others, for other young people coming up who I didn't have those role models. I didn't have that. I want to be that for other people, and I want them in turn to lead for the next generation. So I feel like this is just, this goes beyond pride. This goes beyond a day. This is really more about who we are as a people, as a community, and the responsibilities that we have moving forward.
I would want to just scream on the mountaintop that we are a special place, but that will never fully be there. I've always thought that for me, DEI work it feels like a ministry. It feels like a part of my faith. And I've always promised that when I feel like I'm there, like I've learned how to be an ally, I've learned how to stand up for all people, then I've missed the point, because it's a forever process. And I see that as Naz too. We're still messing up. We're always going to, because we're a bunch of humans working together. But that we are a special place that will forever be growing and shifting to support the people that are here. The work is never done. And although we do celebrate in March, the bigger picture is that we continue to do the hard work as a whole campus to lead to that celebration, that we intentionally create spaces for hard conversations and deeper learning, and consistently growing as a community.
Beyond the Pride Parade, what are some of the ways that Nazareth works to help members of the LGBTQAI+ community feel seen, welcomed, and included? What resources, programs, or initiatives at Nazareth are you particularly proud of?
This is more Kim's area, so I'll let her address that.
I would say it's just little ways that we can open opportunities to support people, support students, support staff and faculty, show the prospective students that we do create these spaces and make changes. So some small examples of that is there was a big 1.5 year long project that one of my student workers took on with a faculty member to do an entire inventory of every single bathroom on campus. And like this 3-phase project that we are like almost moving into phase 3 of. So it's been like a 3-year project now at this point, but looking at everything and saying, okay, well, this bathroom is a single stall restroom. If we in phase 1 just put a lock on the outside, now it's gender inclusive. If in phase 3, when we have the funds as an institution and not just my budget, we take down the stall, now it's physically accessible, and then if we look at spaces, we looked at like dark zones, like, okay, we have nothing in GAC. So we were able to change 6 bathrooms that were single stall into gender inclusive, all gender bathrooms. And in that process, we also started learning a lot about physical accessibility. We learned a lot about how do we handle all identities here. So for example, there's a bathroom in the library that there are several stalls, but it's all gender. And I'm like, why can't we just do that with all of our bathrooms? And then after talking with students and supporting all of the students, the Diversity Council, I was very enlightened by our Muslim women who said, well, then we can't like adjust our hijab in the bathroom. So while I'm very supportive of an all gender bathroom, that now takes away my access. So learning like the ins and outs of how do we maximize accessibility for all and not just looking at this through one lens. So that was the bathroom project. We now have a newly published LGBTQIA+ resource guide. So it has really a guide for our identifying students of where are the offices that I can find support, what are spaces that might speak to me, that resonate with what I need, what I want in my NAS experience. It has a connecting group of allies. So we did this whole project as an ad hoc committee where people were able to say, I would like to be on the ally list, but then they had to explain why. They had to explain the trainings they've taken, if they've done Safe Zone. And then we had an ad hoc committee that went through and vetted that list and said, the ones that we have questions on, we'll reach out to. And if there's an issue or a question, because what we don't want to do is put our students in harm's way. Send them to someone who thinks they're an ally, but could potentially be harmful because they might not know what it really takes to be a strong ally, not just a passive ally. So really doing that hard work of highlighting people in the community that our students can really go to. Adding in things like this coming year, we'll have our 4th lavender graduation ceremony, and really finding ways to make that a safe space where any staff or faculty who are invited, it's because a student put their name down. So it's them saying, this is an ally that I want present, not just doing an open invite to everybody. And we have a NAS Weekend Affinity gathering. So we have a BIPOC Alana Plus gathering. We have an LGBTQIA Plus gathering. And that's just really coming together, celebrating, mingling, and showing the opportunities. Okay, if you want to give back, here's a scholarship fund. Here's a way to connect. Here's our staff and faculty groups, like all the different ways that they can connect in and be a part of the community. And then also, of course, our scholarships. We have 2 active scholarships right now for the community. One is the Williams Lundeen Scholarship, and then the Rainbow Changemakers Scholarship. So ways to give students in the community or who impact the community in any way a chance to get some funds to allow them some little bit of relief for their schooling money.
I think, and everything that Kim said is, there's probably things that aren't even on this list that are happening. I really think that even, beyond Pride, one of the things is just relationship building in general. Kim mentioned the resource guide. I think we have, 80 plus staff and faculty who are in this directory. So of an institution our size, that's a pretty substantial number of folks who are willing to put themselves out there and say, I support you publicly, and to the students for them to know that, they can reach out. So, but not only that, I think it's just the relationships that we have built with faculty and staff. It's great to see our relationships grow, relationships that we have with the students and building connections with the students, to see maybe a faculty who's in like communication sciences is connecting with a student who's in the history department. I mean, there's all kinds of relationships being built across this campus, and I think that's one of the things that I have loved to see happen organically. That people I didn't even know when I first came here, which was actually a couple of months before COVID, so I can't really say much about that. But just the growth that I have seen in relationships of people, to know that this is a community. This is people who care about one another and have, built their own relationships off of this. That's just an amazing thing to see as well. And that's what I'm really excited about, is that we feel a connection with one another that goes outside of the classroom. It's outside of the institution. It's more on a human, personal level. And that's really valuable and something that just can't be taken away.
What resources, programs, or initiatives at Nazareth are you particularly proud of?
Got it. I would say a couple of things. One thing is, I look back at historical things that I just inherited, like documents and folders. And one thing, I couldn't get access to the actual folder, but I saw that there was a staff and faculty group called SGIN, similar to, we have the AFSC, Association of Faculty and Staff of Color. So I didn't know anything about this group. I reached out to Tara and a couple of faculty members, and I was like, there used to be an affinity group for staff and faculty in the community. What can I do? Can I help kickstart this? Can I help reignite it? And after Tara did some networking and talking around, she came back and said, in this political climate, we really just need allies right now. Could we get an ally group going? So we did. We just started with like a lunch. I'm like, okay, how about I'll just buy lunch. Let's see who comes. And it was like 40 something. I don't even know how many, though. It was huge. So we did that. And then we're like, okay, now let's try a happy hour at Pittsford Pub. Huge hit. Let's try a breakfast. No matter when we did it, there was a huge turnout, and also a huge turnout of people like, I'm so mad I can't make it.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's keep this going. So holding a few things every semester that's institutionally supported, funded by Student Life, to really bring our community and our allies together. And I think it's been a game changer for how we show up as a community. I think just knowing each other, like you said, the relationship building.
Yeah, I definitely think that has helped us grow as a community. And, we've started out kind of initially with this group of kind of educating people on some things like, recent statistics and things that were happening in the political world and how it was affecting us. But it's kind of grown beyond that, of more of a, it's not even like a support group. It's just a we all belong group. And it's a time for people just to come together and be themselves. We encourage them to, if you're working on a knitting project, bring it. You can sit there and chat with people. We've had some kind of like wellness things. We've had John Rigney come in and do some breathing exercises. It's a time for people to just kind of let loose, be yourself, take a load off, relax, and, do some self-care first. It's kind of that whole, on the airplane, with the drop down of the oxygen, you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. And that's really what this ally group is about, is just people coming together, being there for one another, taking care of themselves so that we can be stronger together when we move forward.
And one more thing that comes to mind is both of us, along with a whole group of individuals, I think have really amped up our relationship with alumni and donors, coming together with all different generations and just showing them the Atlas Center, because it's a baby. It only opened in 2019, and in 2022 moved to the room it is now. So it used to be like literally a tiny little closet. Now it's a whole room with a sub room. So it's really growing fast, and being able to show off some of our resources in there and the gathering space that people come. Some people come to do work. Some people come to play guitar. Some people just come and lay on the couch and deep breathe because they've had a day. But also to be able to show, one of our donors donated a flag to us. So it's a Gilbert originally signed flag by Gilbert. So being able to show that, and Advancement bought a beautiful case for it, and there's a whole description plaque. So just being able to show there is history here and there is future.
What would you say to a student, staff, or faculty member who was considering participating for the first time?
That's easy. Just come as yourself. Come as who you are. You're going to be supported. If it's at Pride and you didn't, you signed up late or you didn't sign up at all, you don't have to have a t-shirt to belong with us. You are there. You're going to have a great time and we're going to have a great time with you. So just come as you are. And that's all we want is for you to just be your authentic self.
Ditto. I would say just do it. You'll be welcomed and embraced as your authentic self. You'll experience this joy and love that is palpable. It's not even just a feeling. It is an energy. It's, I think, like a spirit in the space. Just come and experience it. And that's the only way to understand it, to get that joy that is felt there. And that feeling of witnessing everybody coming together, from students to community to staff, faculty, leadership. It's unmeasurable. And you only can know it by being there and feeling it.
And if they wanted to contact you, can we give out your email so people can reach out?
Of course. So again, it's Kim Winden, and my personal Naz email is kwinden7@naz.edu. And
Tara Winner-Swete, and my Nazareth email is twinner3@naz.edu.
And then you can also reach out to atlas@naz.edu, which is our Atlas email, so that we can.
And then we have a Pride email. It's nazrockpride@naz.edu.
I would be remiss if I did not mention a collaboration between Kim, Tara, and I. The LGBTQAI+ Alumni Oral History Project, which preserves and shares the experiences of former Nazareth University students who identify as part of that community. Through recorded interviews and personal narratives, the project documents alumni perspectives on campus life, community identity, belonging, and social change across the eras of the university's history. These oral histories contribute to a richer understanding of Nazareth's past, while ensuring that the LGBTQAI+ voices are included in the institutional record. Several interviews from the project are publicly available through Nazareth University's repository hosted by the Nazareth Library, where they serve as valuable resources for research, teaching, and community engagement. If you're interested in participating, please do not hesitate to contact Kim, Tara, or me, and my email is tkneela8@naz.edu. And thank you, Kim and Tara, for all the work you're doing on and off campus to make this a real community for all. And thanks for sharing your stories here on the Nazareth History Podcast. We also thank you, the listener. If you like what you hear, let us know. You can like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platforms, and love it if you'd leave us a review. Thank you, and until next time.